Hey, Blue Table fans! I am super excited today to make this video about the Monster Manual, which came out in the late 70s. It had this not so great art in it. About, I don't know, 5 years later. By the way, Jeff Stamler, I have your, right there's the thing. I have your Monster Manual. Alright, so let's see, when did this one come out? The new, okay, 77 for the initial release. And anyway, sometime later they redid the cover, which is great. Of course, early D&D publications are plagued by inconsistent, binding. It's just all over the place. And that's alright, it was kind of like the Wild Wild West. These were the garage days of Dungeons & Dragons. But I started playing D&D in 1981. I was 12 years old. A summer that would change my life forever. Now I'm writing my own Monster Manual for my own system, and I'm super excited about it. And as an homage to Gary Gygax, the legend, my hero, who sat down and just wrote these books all by himself, which is what I'm doing. So he basically solo wrote the initial core books. The Player Handbook, which I think was first, Dungeon Master Guide, and of course the Monster Manual. A handbook, a guide, and a manual. And yeah, and he wrote them. And look at how thick the text is here in the DM guide. I mean, it's nuts. And it takes some erudition to understand this and play it. And this book still stands the test of time. It just has so much good stuff in it. It's absolutely insane. Indispensable. But what I'm going to do today is talk to you about how the Monster Manual has evolved from this to this. Let's get cracking. So first, we're literally going to go A to Z. So the initial Monster Manual had this stuff in it with those Gothic letters. And almost every single thing had, some art to it. They had a bunch of kids, 4 to a room, I think it was, and they were just cranking out art for this thing. So you may notice the first entry here is the aerial servant. And by the way, in the book I've made, each one of these gets 2, 3, as many as 6 or 10 pages of color art with lots and lots of writing and ideas, and just awesome. So I'm very proud of it. So now, of course, going to, I think, 2016 when 5th edition came out, you've got, what's the first entry? The Aarakocra, which are the bird people. And those came in a, was it a module or was it the Fiend? Well, they definitely came out in the Fiend Folio. So way back when, you had your Monster Manual, then this came out, I think it was in like 1982, and then, or 1981 or something. And then, of course, the Monster Manual 2 came out. And those were basically your 3 Monster Manuals. So I'm pretty sure Aarakocra is in this one. I bought these online, by the way. Yep, there you go. And so the Fiend Folio is, hold on, I'm going to move this up a little bit. There we go. So the Fiend Folio was done by the Britons. And so all the people in the UK, they submitted all these monsters. The initial Monster Manual was Gary Gygax basically writing it by himself. So yeah, Aarakocra make their appearance here. I'm not sure if they were in a module before that. The Aboleth, also not in the initial Dungeons Monster Manual here. The Aboleth makes its appearance in, oh boy, by the way, off camera here I have like a bunch of modules. I believe it's in I1, I'm not sure, I believe it's in I1, Dwellers of the Forbidden City. So let's take a look in the back of these old modules. There you go. There's the appearance of the Aboleth in this module. And then of course it's got into everybody's consciousness. And this is 1981, as you can see here. So yeah, Aboleth came out in that. And then, so let's just leave off on this. The Ankeg, which of course has been around since forever. That's the initial art for it. Pretty cool, huh? And then, of course, in the modern Monster Manual, you of course have an ANKEG as well. Let me see if I can get, well, there's angels, right? Animated objects, yeah, there you go, there's your ANKEG. Very much a different, what's it called, aesthetic for that. So Rug of Smothering used to be a magic item in the DM's guide. It was like a cursed item. So back to the monster manual, you have ants, ape, gorilla, ape carnivorous, axebeak, and these get a nod in the new Dungeons and Dragons movie. You'll see a bunch of birds. Of course, these were 7 feet tall, and in the movie they're like 3 feet tall. So back to, so the initial monster manual actually just had a lot of regular creatures. They had prehistoric creatures, dinosaurs figured in there, and of course, this was back in the age where there was no internet. So Gary Gygax probably just went to his local library, checked out all these books, and he took things from that and made it into the monster manual. Probably about at least 25% of the monsters in here are just regular creatures, maybe with a little twist. So baboon, badger, Burluchotherium, which is like a prehistoric rhino creature, barracuda. Now the basilisk makes its first appearance here in Dungeons and Dragons lore with 8 legs, and I don't know if in mythology they had 8 legs. You have bear, you use different types of bears, giant beaver, and there's actually giant beavers in some of the adventures. Giant beetles, of which he gives 6 different types, some explanations, and they're really cool. Like some of them, like the boring beetle, have communal intelligence equivalent to the human brain. So a lot of cool, so he's injecting his creativity in it, which is what I'm doing with mine, as I'm taking a relatively plain, common material, and I'm adding some creativity to it, which is the whole nature of it. And now we have the Beholder. So look at that art. Now this creature actually appeared in an even earlier work. I think it was Chainmail. And so there is some actually earlier artwork to that, and of course a beholder became, it's on the cover of the monster manual now, and because it was so powerful and so interesting with all the eye stalks and everything, that it became it captured the imagination of people. I don't have it here in my side stock, but there is a book called Lords of Madness. I think it's 2.5 edition. Definitely get it if you can. It's pretty rare, but you can find it sometimes on eBay or whatever. And then you have the Black Pudding. Gary Gygax was a huge fan of puddings and oozes and stuff like that. And of course, that continues today in modern adventures. So, you know what? I just want to go to the current monster manual. And of course, there's beholders. So you have a beholder, Death Tyrant, a third page. Hold on, is there? Yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages for beholders. And in my monster manual, that's what I'm doing too. Like most of the monsters have at least 2 pages, and it's going to be deluxe. I'm cruising away easily by October or November. I'm going to have 600 or 700 pages in my monster manual, and it's going to be similar word count per page as well. So I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah, these are probably like 500 words on there. All right, let's continue. Let's see. Let's go back to the old one. So Black Pudding, of course, all the puddings and oozes and everything were put under ooze in the new one here. Let's see if we can find it. Yeah, here we go. So basically they have all the oozes, and Black Pudding, gelatinous cube, gray ooze, ochre jelly. These are all in the original monster manual. And in mine, I've reinvented them and made them into a lot of really cool stuff. So a Black Pudding was actually the scariest of all of them in the original monster manual. If you read it, this thing is scary. Hit dice 10. So like it would go hit dice 1 through 10, and then a few things have more than 10. And so there you go. Another original from the monster manual is Blink Dog. And I'm actually not sure the Blink Dog appears in the current one. Let me see if I can look that up. And then, of course, you have another mundane creature, the boar. So a lot of these guys have The boar. He bores you to death. Hold on, I'm looking at blink dog in here. Beholder, bugbear. Yeah, the blink dog is noticeably absent from the current monster manual. They put in blights instead, which are from, I think, the Sunless Citadel. They were like a monster that came out in a module later on. So here you have different types of boars. And then a lot of the psionic creatures just disappeared, like soon, out of the subsequent monster manuals. Brain Mole is one of those. They basically they're kind of on a different dimension, and they just suck the psionic points away, and they're one of those nuisance animals that really, there's a lot of them in this book. So you have a brownie, which is a fey creature, buffalo, a bugbear, which does make it into the modern monster manual. Let's see if I can get a close-up here of that. So you can, well, let's do it the other way. So you can see, what it is. And in the original monster manual, a lot of attention was given to the humanoid races. So like the evil things, like the section for humans in this is absolutely enormous. And in first edition, it would be like you would encounter 50, 100, 200 humanoids because there were no miniatures. You were just sort of theater of the minding it, and you would have to have area of effect attacks. And of course, that's where wizards were very powerful in the initial thing once they started getting those big area of effect things like Cloud Kill or whatever, because they could just annihilate, 60 brigands like nothing. Oh, here's a bugbear. Obviously the art is like hugely better. But what's not better is there's not very much written about them. Well, maybe not in this. There's a little bit more word count here in the original monster manual, and you do get 2 entries. And of course, in the subsequent things for 5th edition, like Xanathar's Guide, you do get a lot. Not Xanathar's Guide. Is it Volos? Yeah, I think it's Volos. They give you lots of different versions of the different monsters, which is nice. So here you have Bolette, and let's see here. Let's see if that happens in, the land shark. Oh no, here it is. Yeah, land shark, of course, is a classic D&D monster, and of course it's been reinvented and has cool new art. I'm trying to show it to you there. So that's really cool. Let's see if we can get through C before this video is too long. And by the way, my camera is kind of old, so it might cut out at any second, in which case I'll just be okay with how it went. So you have Bull, and of course they don't have that in the new monster manual, at least not the normal way. What happens in the current monster manual, you go back to Appendix A, and it has all of these normal creatures. Although oddly, a phase spider is in there, and giant versions of regular things are all in this back appendix, which is something I'm definitely going to be doing as well. Because really, who's putting a baboon in their thing? So their axe beak and stuff like that. Now, with my system, with Elans, it goes from levels 1 through 10, which may seem not exciting, but actually is very exciting, because level 1 is kind of like level 4 or 5 in regular D&D. There's no initial levels where you're like super weak and just dying easily. You kind of start out at more of a heroic level, and then level 10 is more like a level 18 in a regular thing. So the levels are approximately time and a half. All right, let's keep going. So Camel, Carrion Crawler. Now, this is a weird entry because as I've read these, the Carrion Crawler it doesn't actually have a damaging attack. It just paralyzes you, and I guess takes you away somewhere for, I don't know what. Evidently not something damaging. And then Catoblepus, which is a cool creature. But again, you've got camel, cattle, bull. You've got all these mundane creatures sort of peppered in here. And on the back, if you read the back of it, it says there's 350 monsters. But this book, a page count is only 112 pages, whereas the monster manual you're getting in 5th edition is 340 pages. It's literally 3 times as long. And of course, it's like 4 monsters per page here, and in the new one, it's like 1 monster per page on average. And so it makes me wonder if the carry-on crawler makes its appearance in 5th edition, and it does. Look at that. Carrion crawler. And what was the other one we were looking at? Oh yeah, the Catoblepus. I think the Catoblepus is in one of the expansion books for 5th edition. Yeah, it is. Centaurs, which I have always thought are really lame. A Chimera makes its appearance here. Giant Centipede is in the back of, here I'm kind of off thing. Trying not to show you my feet. So bad. Giant Centipede is definitely in 5th edition, but it's just in the back. Coatls are amazing. In the original Dungeons & Dragons, they had psionics. 5th edition notably does not have psionics. And so, yeah, you have a Chimera here. Chimera, which is really, the Chimera is just a big old beat stick creature. And that's something, when I'm writing my monster manual, it's like, I don't want it to be boring. I want every creature to have something interesting, some tactical maneuvers, some way that, you know, you've got to work your way around in order to overcome it, or maybe it creates an interesting ally for some other creature. Coatls are absolutely amazing. They're good, which is kind of the problem and why I don't think you see them very often. But look at that art. Like, that is stand the test of time. I absolutely love the Coatl art in the 5th edition D&D book. I mean, it's just absolutely outstanding. And you definitely get more attention, and it has more spells. But that's not the usual thing. Most of the monsters in this book are actually watered down, and they've taken away a lot of their abilities, and they're simply not as interesting. Like, look at Cockatrice. Like, that's it. That's all it does. It doesn't do much. And I'm like, there's a real lost opportunity there, I think. Because look at all this space. I mean, I don't know. I don't like to criticize things, because obviously everything can be good in its own way. By the way, this is all the farther we're going to get. We're in the C's. Yeah, obviously we're to D's for demons. I have a lot of things to say about demons. So interesting. Next video I make is going to be a little bit about the Satanic Panic. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I lived through it. Had a relative of mine who literally would not let me play these games. So anyway, yeah, and then Monster Manual 2, stuff like that. Hold on, I did want to say one other thing that had relevance to what we were doing. Oh, we're in Dragons now. Chimera, Coatl, what was it? What did I miss? There's something... nope. It was about Cloaker. So Cloakers appear in the modern one, but don't appear in the original Monster Manual. And that is because Cloakers came out with the A series. And I can't remember which one it was. Yep, there it is. A2, Secret of the Slaver's Stockade. And that introduced the Cloaker. So your players, they wouldn't even know what this was. And of course, a lot of times in these old modules, they would put art that kind of misdirected you, that didn't have anything to do with the module's interior. And so that's a thing. All right, well, that's all I got to say for now. I'm going to start with the C's next time. Thanks for tuning in.